Good morning. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. And yesterday was Memorial Day. I love Memorial Day. War movies on. I watched a documentary on um, World War II, which is kind of my thing. I'm just so interested in it. Read a book about the Rangers that were really important in the Normandy invasion, and then as the Allies, made their way into Germany and achieved victory, and just love that kind of stuff. It's just kind of something that's just really interesting to me. But what I also did a few days ago is I watched a documentary on the Vietnam War, which is something that I really don't know much about that period in history. I know it was a very controversial time, um, a very disturbing time, a lot of social unrest and political unrest. And but one of the things I noticed was in the documentary, it talked about a lot of the soldiers that were in Vietnam, at the early and mid part of the 1970s as the war is kind of winding down. They're making their way over to Vietnam and engaging in a war that personally I didn't see that it was worthwhile. But the thing that a lot of those soldiers started with is they literally were saying like, why are we here? And they had news crews and journalists that were in the field with them, and they were putting the mic and talking to the guys and to the soldiers, and the soldiers were like, I don't know why we're over here, and I'm ready to get back home. And when you look at that and then you compare it to World War II, where there was a very defined enemy, and at least from my perspective, there was a really defined purpose of you had this aggression of this dictator who was killing um, just millions of people and committing genocide. There was a really clear message of we're going to fight up against tyranny. We're going to fight up against this dictator. And from my perspective, it was a very worthwhile war to be involved in. So you look at those two wars, and what it reminded me is in the spiritual life, so many times we really kind of forget our purpose. I've struggled with it many times in my job. Like, I don't know if I'm doing anything good. I don't know if I'm being productive. I don't know if I'm being worthwhile or even making a dent in life. Is anybody going to even remember that I was around? And I know a lot of people struggle with that. And we oftentimes need to have a reset and be reminded of our purpose. And so I think about scripture, and I think about someone like Paul, and I look at the book of Philippians where he is looking at his life and he's saying, I have two options. Option one is I stay here and I am an effective minister of the gospel. And I'm going to keep preaching the gospel to anyone who will listen, and even my captors. And I am committed, even though my life right now circumstantially looks pretty dark, I have a really defined purpose, and that is to share the gospel and to participate in what God is doing in this earth, and He is allowing me a chance to participate in that. And I think that obviously that really clear purpose on this life for him, it motivated him, it challenged him, it pushed him, and he was like, I want to make the most of every minute I have. And then he had the opposite view of like, listen, if I die tomorrow, then I win there too. I get to be with Jesus and see him face to face. And Paul is no different than any of us. He lived at a time when the church was starting, and um, we all have that same opportunity. Maybe not to live exactly how Paul lived, but we have the same purpose, and that is to live as Christ and to die as gain. So remember that. Remember your salvation today. I look at 2 Peter chapter 1, where he says, don't be short sighted. Remember your salvation. Remember that you've been saved and cleansed from all your past sins. You've been redeemed. and make the most of your time because that's your purpose as a Christian. So, blessings to you today, and talk to you soon.